We have a daughter named Charlotte Hiltz. She's now 5 years old. She was at my mom's and she'd spent the night, and they called me and they said, we need to have a conversation with you.
We were holding hands, and all of a sudden she just lifted her hands like this, kind of like a baby startle.
We kind of knew what it was, but we were shocked about, she's actually kind of having a seizure.
It's okay, baby. Gaga's got you. It's okay.
So she was diagnosed as just with having epilepsy.
She started gaining the ability for fine motor skills, and then just one day, just couldn't pick things up anymore.
One day would be able to walk fine, and then the next day she'd have a limp. I remember being terrified because it felt like you were losing her.
We spent quite a bit of time in the hospital in Dallas.
It took some time, and they were kind of doing all these different drugs and they weren't working, and it was really stressful to us.
There was a time when my trust began to waver, but I also didn't know where to go.
We reached out to my aunt, who at the time was practicing at Dell Children's, and they said, I think she needs to come down here.
And when we were pointed to Dr. Clarke, it just seemed very apparent that we were in the right place.
For the first time, I think, through everything, we finally felt heard.
So Charlotte has what we call a focal onset epilepsy, but the complexity was it spread so quickly that it could be perceived as something else. So she came into our unit, she had seizures, we effectively treated those, and there was some subtle improvement, but she continued having seizures.
That's when Dr. Clarke said, I think it's time to look at something that's not medicine.
It definitely took me a minute to get there. I didn't want to perform brain surgery on my daughter.
The way they described it when we met with Dr. ETK, who ended up being Charlie's surgeon, is that she was a ticking time bomb.
So we did this relatively new technique called ablation, and we ablated a very, very narrow window, saving everything around. So instead of a deterioration of our function, everything actually improved.
She hasn't had a single seizure since the week after surgery. She is running and kicking a soccer ball and a goal. She's riding a bike.
She seems to be moving both sides better, whereas before she didn't use one side as much. So she's doing fantastic.
We got our granddaughter back, and it's really all due to...
That surgery.
Yeah.
And that's part of why we're doing this, because I know that there's families like us that are still wondering and still not feeling heard. And I want you to know that people like Dr. Clarke are there. They're there, and they can make all the difference in the world.